It's Off Exit 10, presented by Capital District Sport and Fitness.
There was really a sighting in Troy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really... Ray Graff emailed it to me.
Wait, when was this?
Ray Graff from WAMC messaged it to me. He said, have you seen this? And I hadn't seen it. And so...
That's, yeah. Don't see it on the news anywhere.
Yeah, I haven't heard any of it anywhere else, yeah. This stuff doesn't really get reported. It's interesting.
Why do you feel like that is? Jay, are we going?
Everything's good.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Yeah, why do you feel like that is? Like, we'll talk more, but like the government released the files the other day, and like and there's a lot going on in the world, but like, yeah, not a single headline I really scrolled across.
Yeah, it's I don't know what to make of it. I think the released files weren't that compelling. I mean, they're dumping all the garbage just to comply right now.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that's gotten much attention.
Yeah, like was anything new to you in there, or all stuff you had seen?
Oh, the
heard
Apollo
of?
Images were new.
Those were cool, like
Yeah,
the three
those were
little
cool.
lights.
Yeah, the three little lights on Apollo 17, and that weird streak on Apollo 12. I don't know what that was. At Apollo 12, I think it was 12. Yeah,
I think it was 12 and 17.
12
they
and
had
17.
shown.
Yeah.
But there was, like, astronauts had said they had seen things on those missions, or no?
They have said they've seen things on missions. In fact, I had talked to Alan Bean, who was on Apollo 12, and he didn't talk about that picture from the moon. He told me about he was in Skylab. This was like 1972. They're up in Skylab, and they had a red flashing light in orbit with them, and then it was there for a while, and then it left. And satellites don't have lights on them.
Right.
I mean, there's nobody puts a light on a satellite or a spacecraft. That's extra weight. It's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah.
So it was that's very strange. He took pictures of it, and you can find those pictures online. Those have made it out online. But
Yep.
And they're from a handheld camera from inside the Skylab. So, so when you zoom in, what does it look like? Well, it's a picture of a light with a lot of hand motion. So it's what you would expect.
Yeah.
You can't tell a lot from the picture, but
Sounds like he had an iPhone.
Yeah, in the 70s. But like, what do you make of those in the Apollo? Like, could it just be an artifact? You're like, oh wow, this could really be something.
the three lights isn't an artifact. I would think you could have a possibility for reflection, but there's not many three lights that could reflect off of it, and that
Right.
could be resolved pretty carefully by just telling where the camera is in respect to everything else. So,
Yeah.
so the three lights in Apollo 17 are interesting. The light streak in Apollo 12 image, I'm not sure what to make of that, and that could be a camera artifact or a malfunction in the camera. So.
Yep. But nothing in there to you that's more, that's like better evidence than like a Tic Tac, the gimbal, the Go Fast, nothing in there.
No, the first three that came out were much more compelling than these were. And many people didn't even find those three compelling.
Those
so
you're
it's
saying the
difficult.
Tic Tac and the gimbal.
Right.
I mean, what do you feel like? Is the government going to continue to slow drip and it's like more and more is going to come out? Or
It looks like they're going to continue to slow drip. The word is that so Representative Luna and and Congress had demanded that the Pentagon release 46 videos, and they actually had a list of 46 specific videos of that they had seen and found compelling. And so those were supposed to be released. I think she had a deadline of April 14th or something. And that deadline passed, and the Pentagon said they're not releasing them. And then the administration said, no, you're releasing this data. And so the word is that that'll come out this Friday, which is tomorrow.
Whoa.
So those 46 videos could come out tomorrow. I don't know what the timeline is, but so they might delay it a bit.
right.
So those could be more compelling, and that'll be interesting. And it'll be interesting to see how the news reacts. The news is really still funny about these sorts of things.
Yeah, I mean, and to you now here too, anybody I talk to that I guess like is anti having these conversations, doesn't care to look into it. It's like, well, this is just a distraction from Iran, distraction from everything else going to the economy, and I mean, it's like, sure, it could be, but also, I mean, it's a good sign that the government is now acknowledging that there are things.
It could be a distraction, but it's also could be a real thing.
It can be both of those.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing more convenient than using a real problem as a distraction for another problem.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So,
yeah. Did you see the Corbell doc? Didn't he put out videos at the end of that are supposedly some of these 46 that are supposed to be released?
No, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know if Jordy can find them. But yeah, I think there were a few of those. There's like another jellyfish-looking one and some orbs.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but that were gonna be some of that.
What were they
Interesting.
called?
So Jeremy Corbell, right? What is he? He's just a journalist.
I think so.
I think
a
so, but
filmmaker, I guess.
Yeah, but he put out a documentary earlier this week, and I think at the end of that there were some new videos that are supposedly some of these 46 that the government.
Oh, I see. I hadn't seen that.
Supposed to release. Yeah, Kev, but I appreciate you doing this, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is great.
Yeah, when I first saw last summer you and Shadagas were doing this at Albany, I was just like, how cool, right down the road from us.
Right.
That you're doing this type of research. Yeah, how'd you get into all this, man?
Wow, that's a bit of a long story. It goes back to when I started graduate school. This would have been so I grew up in Wisconsin, and I went to graduate school in Montana, at Montana State at Bozeman. So it was my first time moving away from home. This would have been late August of 1988, and I moved to Bozeman, Montana, and it was just our first week of classes, first or second week, right in the beginning of the semester. There was a cattle mutilation on one of the ranches nearby, and 2 cows were killed, and they were all surgically, I don't know what word to use. I've got to find a good word for this. They were surgically manipulated. I'll use that. That sounds a little better. But it was a classic, now that I know more about cattle mutilations, it's a classic cattle mutilation for the most part. They had, the mouths were resected, the sensing organs were taken, the ears and the eyes.
You saw this?
And the tongue. No, I didn't see it, but it was on the news.
Okay.
It was on the news, and the sex organs removed, and if I remember right, it was very strange. It was even stranger than some of the other cattle mutilations. One of the cows had like a cylindrical hole punched through it. It was bizarre. That's what I remember. I may be wrong about that.
Right.
But I remember the whole thing being very strange. And of course, this is all over the news. And there were many, many UFO sightings to the sheriff's department that night. And
the same night there was
the same night
cattle mutilation.
as the cattle mutilation. And then, so the news is all up and they're all in a tizzy because it's either Satanists or aliens, right? These are the two hypotheses that everybody's running with, right? And so the next day I was in our physics department and talking to some of the other new physics graduate students. And so we're in the second floor, just in the hallway, just talking about this. And it had turned into a very heated conversation, and because we're all, we were all pretty freaked out by this. And, when you start graduate school, you're looking down the barrel of spending 5 to 8 years at you don't want to spend 8, but 5 to 6 years, certainly, in a graduate program at this place. And we had all just moved there. And so what kind of crazy place have we just moved to was basically the feeling of this conversation.
Yeah, with either Satanists or aliens.
Yeah, exactly. What are we dealing with here? We got Satanists running around killing cows. Grew up in Wisconsin, so what am I I'm familiar with cow tipping. I mean, I never went cow tipping because it just seemed cruel, but I've heard people doing it, but not cattle mutilation.
Cow tipping is what? You just knock over a cow?
Then when they're sleeping, they stand up, so you just push over the cow.
Paul,
you have to be really drunk first, apparently.
Or said they did that in Chatham.
Paul and I grew up in Chatham, the small town below Albany, but like one stoplight, very rural. Yeah, and you get teased growing up. Like, what do you do there? Just go cow tipping?
Cow tipping,
like, I've never been.
I've never been
cow tipping either. It just would be
my grandmother's favorite animal was cows. I would never want to do that.
But okay, that's your first exposure to just like, there's some weird shit.
So that was weird. And so we were talking about this in the hallway. And one of the professors came out of his office. Clearly, we had disturbed him with all of our boisterous discussion. And he came out of the office to find out what we were talking about. And he said, yeah, this happens here from time to time, and it'll be investigated, and they won't figure anything out, and we'll all just forget about it until it happens again. And then I was like, wow, that makes me feel a lot better about the whole thing.
You're like, wait a minute, hold
really
on.
Crazy.
Should I stay here?
Yeah, exactly. And then he goes, but you know what's really strange? He said, I have friends who work at the Air Force Base up at Malmstrom Air Force Base in northern Montana, and they have problems up there with UFOs flying over the nuclear missile sites, over the ICBMs, and shutting them down.
Now, this is a real thing. I mean...
But this is 1988 I heard about
right.
this, right, from a physics professor in Montana, right? So he knew this was... And he talked about it as happening,
Right.
present tense. And so, so at the time, we listened politely, and when he walked away, we basically laughed our asses off, because it's hard to imagine that this is actually going on at an Air Force base, and they're not all on red alert, right?
Right. And and maybe it's different now, post, I guess this being more in the news, or the 2017 New York Times article, where it's, and you can probably speak more acceptable to discuss and be open to saying maybe there is something else out there of intelligence other than us. But society has kind of presented it to you're a kook if you're talking about this.
Oh, that's how they kept it quiet. I mean, and it isn't, people will joke, well, it's a big conspiracy theory. Well, no, it's not. It doesn't require a conspiracy. It just requires somebody to make a joke about some crazy person who saw a UFO, and then everybody laughs and giggles, and even if it does make it to the news, it's the newscasters are laughing and giggling about it too. I mean, that's what...
Was there at one point, you think, a conscious effort of government to put out into the world, this is kooky if you talk about it?
They did that. They did that on purpose. There are U.S. documents about that, and there's British documents about that.
Other countries as well.
How to handle it, yeah.
Saying what?
Just make fun of it.
To the media and to...
Make fun of it to the media, belittle it, and just let it go. And it'll get forgotten. And it's really what happens.
Yeah, or people that will say, too, it's just like a psyop. It's just something to But it's how much work is then been put in just to create this distraction and what,
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's really true.
There's plenty of other distractions in the world that you can use that are real distractions, and that's, again, like you said, it could be both. It could
real
be
distraction
a real
is
distraction.
Much more effective. Yeah.
Right. So why would you manufacture all of this
just to distract people?
Just to distract people. There's got to be some sort of actual evidence that's out there.
So that was my first experience with this stuff, and I, for the most part, I was interested in it, but I thought it was mostly kooky. I mean, most thought, well, there can't all be aliens, spacecraft, but maybe some of these are interested. But I didn't really think about studying it or anything. And it wasn't until around 2015 when I was here in Albany. I was teaching at U Albany, and I was teaching a class in astrophysics, or an astronomy class, and we had a lecture coming up on astrobiology, and some of my students wanted to know about the possibility of aliens coming to Earth, and I wasn't sure what to talk about for that lecture. I thought, well, I can talk about the Drake equation or the Fermi paradox, and I thought that's all pretty boring though. But so I was just kind of poking around on the internet to see if there's anything interesting or intelligent I could say, as if the internet's going to give me that, right? But I was just looking for ideas, right?
ChatGPT, tell me about.
Right. But I stumbled on the press conference that Robert Hastings had held in 2010. Where they talked about UFO incursions at nuclear weapon sites. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I started playing that. And the first person to speak was Robert Salas, who was at Malmstrom Air Force Base, the same Air Force Base, but in 1966.
So he's talking about that.
So this is 20 years before I heard about it as going on. He's talking about it happening then. And it really just kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. It was like, wait a minute. If everybody, I thought this was nonsense, but if everybody thinks it's nonsense, and if it happens to be real, then that's why nobody's doing anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And this could be really dangerous.
Well, you're talking national security for shutting down.
It's a huge
nukes.
national, yeah. And in Russia, there have been cases where the nuclear weapons have come online and went into launch mode.
Terrifying.
And they were scrambling to shut the missiles down before they launched to the U.S.
Goes back to what we were saying, though. Why is this stuff not known by everybody?
I don't know. It's part of it is because it's taboo. I think that also scares people.
The thought that there's something more than us.
Yeah. It just fundamentally scares people. I think people don't like to admit it, and I think that when people think about it, they don't think about it very carefully, and so they'll say, "Oh, that doesn't scare me." But when you really sit down and talk to people about what's claimed, it's like, yeah, it freaks people out.
Yeah, and I want to go
freaks me out.
Me too, and I want to go through some of this today with you and just get like what's also awesome about you and Shadagas is, am I pronouncing that correct? Shadagas?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I tried to make sure when he was on we were getting it right. Is that, yes, you have like, okay, you're kooky if you talk about it, but then if you really think about it, yeah, it's fucking scary. Mm-hmm. It's like, are we not the greatest thing out there from the evolutionary standpoint, from a technological standpoint?
Yeah, we're so used to being at the top of the food chain, so to speak, the prime species on the planet, that when you encounter the possibility that, well, maybe you're not, and that's terrifying.
Yeah, and okay, then if we accept that potentially is the scenario, and that people in our government know, and one day the plan is to disclose, if that's even possible, is how it's been happening, how you would see it going, where the conversation starts more, you have things in major publications like the Times in 2017, then you go, okay, let's start to release some stuff, and then, okay, we just get us used to the concept so that it is less startling.
I think that's what's happening. I don't think that all of the events, like the New York Times article, was planned. A lot of these things aren't planned. I think they just were, let's just keep this quiet, and then if we have to disclose things, then we'll deal with it then. I don't think that disclosure has been well thought out by our government. I think they've just planned to keep it quiet. But they certainly, since, I'll go back, we'll start at 1947. UFOs didn't start at 1947.
But we can start at Roswell, you're talking about.
But 1947 with Roswell and with all the events that happened that year, that's when it really hit the American consciousness.
Explain events. Obviously Roswell we have.
Yeah, so you have Kenneth Arnold. Kenneth Arnold came first. It was like, June 29th or something of 1947. And he saw 9, he called them saucer-shaped, but they were really crescent-shaped objects flying at high speeds past Mount Rainier in Washington State. And he was flying, and he actually timed them from one peak to another and realized that they were going over 1,000 miles an hour, which was faster than a plane could go at the time. So it was notable, right? And he wasn't the only witness who had seen them. There were actually several witnesses in the area who had seen them, turns out later. And so that was about June 29th. By the time you get to July 4th, right around then is when the Roswell crash probably happened. And it wasn't discovered until like the 6th or the 8th, maybe. I think it wasn't reported until like the 6th or the 8th, right around that time. So this all happened around the 4th of July. And then, so you had that, and then a couple weeks later, you had there was another sighting in Washington where you had a disc that was apparently having trouble and dumped like molten material in Puget Sound and hit a guy's boat. I think hurt the dog, or maybe it killed the dog. I don't
don't tell me
details.
that.
Oh, man.
It was really sad. Yeah.
Don't tell us that.
Left that detail out.
I should have left that out. Sorry, we'll leave that out.
We'll have Jordy
take that out.
We'll have Jordy edit that part out.
Yeah, there we go.
We love the dogs. Just don't hurt the dogs.
No, of course you don't want to hurt the dogs.
Hopefully the dog survived.
But the material was actually recovered and then had been flown to Chicago to be looked at. I don't remember what federal agency looked at it, and then it was to be flown to Chicago, but on the way there, the plane crashed and disappeared.
See, shit like that,
So-
your conspiracy brain just goes,
Of
hey.
course it goes on. I mean, yeah, that's weird. I mean, that's very weird. So, yeah, so all that, so it wasn't, so those were the major events that happened.
And this is documented.
Yeah, this is,
Yeah.
it's in the news and people interviewed and everything, but this is like a 2-week period, right, in 1947. And when you actually go through and look at the UFO sightings, you went from about, what was the rate? The rate's probably around 6 or 7 sightings a day in the U.S.
This is current.
That's pre-1947,
Okay.
or pre-June 1947. About 6 or 7 UFO sightings a day in the whole U.S. And then from around the time of Kenneth Arnold, it starts going up, and it goes up into this spike where by the time you get to the 5th of July of that year, there were about 250 sightings per day.
But now, has that been in the news since then? So people are like looking more.
Yeah, so there's the question: is this a sociological effect or is there a physical effect? And it would take a lot more study, and you'd have to know about all the reports, and not all of them ended up in the newspaper. So it's hard; you can't do the study now,
Right.
unfortunately. But I think it happened way too fast and way too many people. There were several sightings in literally a 7-day period. Several sightings from passenger airplanes, where the pilots and flight attendants had seen things flying alongside their plane. You had a couple landings.
Paul, can you slide that mic a little closer to Kev,
here we
please?
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple landings which were seen by many people. So those certain events don't seem to be socially driven, right? Those seem to be driven by a real event.
By socially, you're saying, well, it's in the news more, so we're looking more, so we're seeing more.
Exactly, yeah. And there were several photographs taken into that 2-week period as well. So there's a huge spike of sightings that goes up and then comes back down, drops back down, and then goes back to the same rate, which is kind of interesting. I don't know
As to why.
What's exactly going on. How much of that is sociological because it's in the news, and how
Right.
much of it is because something was actually happening.
But regardless, you're saying this is the start in our country where it's becoming more prevalent.
But that's when people became aware that you had several key events that happened within a 2-week period, and it just got everyone aware. It hit the news, and it actually got reported on the news, and people were interested in it then.
Right. And this is in the news pre Bob Lazar, or is Bob Lazar really the one putting this into?
Oh, this is well before Bob Lazar.
Way before. Because when did he come
maybe
out?
the 70s.
Okay,
I
so we're
think.
talking this is
Yeah.
way later. So it's in the news when it's going
Yeah.
on.
And this is pre-Sputnik, so it's still 10 years before our first satellites.
Yeah. Around the time, is this when do we already have nuclear facilities in our country?
We had nuclear weapons because we dropped them in 45.
Right.
And in fact, interestingly, what is significant about Roswell, New Mexico, is Roswell, New Mexico had the only nuclear-armed air base in the world at the time.
Interesting.
That's what made Roswell unique. and we know from UFOs shutting down nuclear weapons and things like this, they were interested in this sort of thing. So could there be UFOs hanging out in Roswell? Yeah, definitely.
But then the question is,
Looking back,
why are they interested? Like, if it was to stop us, then why'd they allow us to drop a nuke on Japan? And it's, who knows, right?
I don't know. Yeah, that's been the question. What is their intent? And because intent matters, and we don't know how to determine intent.
Yeah.
It's tough. Yeah, are they shutting them down on purpose, or is it an accident, or is it is it just a byproduct of their, because the ones that were shut down that Robert Salas talked about in 1966 that were shut down because of a guidance system failure.
Yep.
So the missiles are down underground in the tube, and there's a guidance system failure. So that means that the missile doesn't know where it is, and you can't launch it because if it doesn't know where it is, it doesn't know how to get to where it's programmed to go. So the system shuts down if there's a guidance system failure. So why is there a guidance system failure happening in all these missiles? That's correlated with the UFOs. Are they doing it on purpose? Well, maybe that's not the case. What if the UFOs fly by warping space-time and affecting gravity? And affecting gravity, you mess up the guidance system on the missile, and so the missile just stops working.
Right.
So the guidance system just fails because the UFO's hovering over it, and it could have nothing to do with intention at all.
Right.
They could just be checking it out. So it's really difficult to know.
Yeah, it's okay. So then you go to the 40s, and then we continue to have sightings, just not to that magnitude or to that volume. Post the 40s going in.
Yeah, well, you can see you have sightings, and some of them are quite prominent. But what made 47 different was, I think it was the first time that people really became aware that this was going on and that it might be something. Right? You had a crash, and you had a crash. You had several sightings, and that made it into the news, which made it a big deal.
Yeah. Do you think they could be warping space-time? That's the way that they travel such big differences if they're coming from somewhere else?
I think that's a possibility, certainly. They're doing something with inertia. Some of these accelerations are very, very high, like the Tic Tacs when they were accelerating in 2004. I've estimated their accelerations to be about 5,700 Gs.
It's like that would melt a human being and
you would be a puddle of goo. That's it. I mean, let me put it this way. Let's describe what 5,000 Gs would be like. So I'll be kind to myself. Let's say the top half of me is about 100 pounds, the top half, right? Okay. And so now if you put me in a 5,000 G acceleration, that's 5,000 times 100 pounds is how much my top half is going to weigh, right? So that's so what is that going to be? That's going to be 500,000 pounds. So the top of half of me in 5,000 G acceleration weighs 500,000 pounds. What does that do to your bottom half? You know what that does to the bottom half. You're just a puddle. There's nothing left. And so that's what a 5,000 G acceleration looks like. Most equipment couldn't handle it. A machine couldn't handle it. And so it's not just people would be goo. The frame of your craft would just be crushed as well. So we have no idea how these things are accelerating at these accelerations. And these speeds and accelerations have been known since the 1950s and known by some scientists and aeronautical engineers since the 50s. So, and we know that these speeds are spacecraft speeds. So it's been known by some that these are spacecraft.
Yeah. And okay, for you as a researcher, you acknowledge the speeds, and you're seeing this on radars and on camera, on multiple sources. You have multiple pieces of information and data confirming this.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And then, in fact, so Herman Oberth, who was he's a like the rocketry pioneer, and he was the mentor to Wernher von Braun.
Before you go here too, if people are listening and just aren't in this space, haven't researched, like what videos would you tell them to watch to explain looking at the speeds and the angles and types of movement these crafts are taking?
Right. Well, we don't have a lot of videos of them doing crazy things. We have reports from witnesses in some case, and in some cases we have radar data.
Right.
So one of the videos I worked with was the Nimitz video, the Tic Tac video from 2004. And at the end of that video, you've got the Tic Tac in the middle of the screen, and it accelerates to the left, and the targeting system has actually targeted it. But as the object accelerates to the left, the targeting system loses track. And so targeting systems can easily track things accelerating. They can track missiles even. So, and missiles can accelerate up to 30 Gs and still be able to maintain course. I think around 65 Gs, most missiles will lose their airframe starts to break. But most airplanes can't handle, like a F-35 fighter can't handle more than 13 Gs.
Yeah, so there's your comparison.
Before the wings get ripped off, right? And so we estimated the acceleration of this Tic Tac to be something around 78 Gs, which is faster than, it's much higher than a missile could withstand.
Also, when you see the video, right, it's like, looks very tiny on the screen, but what's the size of that craft estimated to be?
The pilots estimate to be about the same size as their F-18s.
Okay.
So that's about 40 feet, 50 feet.
Then you have to ask, okay, if it is a craft, is it something that is ours or another government's or something that is extraterrestrial? In your opinion, there's no way we have technology that could do that.
Nobody's accelerating at 5,000 Gs.
Yeah.
I can't see that. And if anybody had a weapon system like that, it would have been used.
Yeah, right. If we had that,
you don't spend billions of dollars and lose a war when you've got something that can accelerate at 5,000 Gs and just take out everything before anybody can blink.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, which brings you back to the point that it is something else from somewhere else.
It's a non-human tech. That's really what it looks like. Yeah.
The supplement industry is like the Wild West. The lack of regulations mean the supplements you purchase may not even contain the ingredients listed on the label, which is why I get my daily vitamins and supplements from Thorne. Thorne vitamins and supplements are made without compromise. Quality ingredients ensure your body optimally absorbs and digests your daily supplements, while in-house and third-party testing ensure you're getting exactly what you paid for. Thorne offers a variety of health tests reviewed by board-certified physicians that evaluate your lifestyle, gut health, sleep, stress hormones, and metabolic markers to determine which vitamins and supplements may be most effective in helping you feel and perform better throughout the day. For college and professional athletes, Thorne has NSF-certified supplements that make sure you won't get pop positive on a drug test. Whether you're an athlete, professional, parent, grandparent, or weekend warrior, Thorne's selection of high-quality supplements can help improve your quality of life. Switch to Thorne's high-quality and extensively tested supplements today at thorne.com/u/CDSF. That's thorne.com/u/CDSF. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Mark Pro, the recovery tool of choice here at CDSF. Mark Pro is a portable, easy-to-use muscle stimulator we utilize to enhance recovery, prevent overuse injuries, and ultimately boost the performance of our athletes and active adults. Unlike a traditional TENS unit, the Mark Pro doesn't just mask your pain. Its patented technology works to improve circulation, flush lymphatic waste, and reduce soreness. The Mark Pro and Mark Pro Plus are used here at CDSF and trusted by players and trainers from all 30 MLB teams. Plus, the Mark Pro offers US-based one-on-one support for whenever you need help with how to use or when to use your unit. So recover like a pro by heading to markpro.com and using code CDSF for 10% off of Mark Pro, Mark Pro Plus, or Boost Pro Massage Gun. That is markpro.com. Use code CDSF for 10% off your order today. Do you feel like we have reverse engineering programs from downcrafts in our country? You know that or no?
I don't know that for certain. I've talked to people who have knowledge of these things, and that's pretty much what's been claimed by multiple people.
So you feel like, I think
that's probably the case.
Do you think there's tech today, whether in our military, in our world, that has been derived from a downed craft, that we just don't know that it's from that?
That's tough. That's tough to know. I'm forgetting his name. He was CIA, and he wrote the book called After Roswell. His name starts with a C, and I'm confusing it with somebody else, and I know that's not right, so I don't remember his name right now.
Yep.
Is it Philip J. Corso?
It's Corso, yes.
Hey, Paul.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Google.
Thanks,
yeah,
Google.
I kept having Condon pop into my head, but Condon made the report, the Colorado report, where they summarized whether UFOs were a threat or not. And I kept confusing his name with Corso.
Yep.
Yeah, so Philip Corso had written a book where he claimed that certain technologies that we have were derived from UFOs, like I think Kevlar and something like Kevlar and fiber optics and things like this. But it's not clear that that's really true.
Yeah, the hard part is, too, there's just so much information out there, and you don't know what's true and what's not true.
It's a noisy minefield.
Do you ever think that people in the government throw out fake information just to make people look wacky and make this seem wackier?
We know they do, yes. They certainly do.
Like in regards to this. Like, okay, I'm going to give you some classified info, and I know this section has some truth, but then here's a bunch of bullshit. So if you talk, is going to sound silly. So even the true stuff seems fake because the fake is so wacky.
Yeah, I worry that some of the videos that were released after the first 3 were this way.
You're talking in this latest government drop or just over?
No, just previously. Like one of them that Corbell had brought out was with the triangles in the sky, all the triangles, and that was being done by, that's a bokeh effect from actually putting triangle shape on your aperture of your camera. So, and you could tell that was
intentionally done.
Intentionally done, yeah. But it was put out by the Navy as this was a real video taken.
This is what makes it even harder.
And so, but this is how you mess it up. This is how you mess it up without a conspiracy, right? You release a few videos that are real and just show the crappy parts, right, that aren't interesting.
Right.
Remove the metadata, that's important, which we know they actually did. And then you release another video that's clearly fake. That's going to convince some people, but any experts are going to look at that and say, yeah, that's nonsense. And then all the experts are going to be like, yeah, see, these things are all nonsense.
Yeah.
And
have you?
It's very easy. It's very easy to ruin things by just throwing in 1 or 2 that clearly are fake. Yeah.
Like that. Did you see that 8-point star looking one in the latest drop?
No, I didn't see
Paul,
that.
pull it up so you can show Kevin. Because to me, I feel like that's.
What is it?
Just do like 8-point star UFO file release. You see like smoke behind it. You see people say there's a parachute to the side. I'm not the expert.
Should I just look at images or
do a video? Show Kevin, see what he thinks of this one. Because to me, I'm like, this is a BS one and all the stuff that they put out. Paul, spin your screen if you can. Is that the video?
I don't know. That's what I was trying to see.
Just YouTube it. I'm sure it's on YouTube. Or Jay, if you can find it.
Good call. YouTube.
But I feel like this is a good example of, and maybe you're going to tell me I'm wrong and it's not fake. You're the pro. But where they just put out a BS one, and it's like the clearest, biggest one in the file drop.
Yeah, these things are hard to know sometimes.
Is it this like short one here? Should I click
Here,
on?
let me look. Let's find it for Kevin. Let me see. Yeah. Let's see if it's just going to show.
They've redacted all the metadata, it looks like.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, sure.
Oh, that's weird. Is that actually smoke, or is it a... That's weird.
Yeah, that was like the most clear, biggest kind of video they had in the last release. It made me think of you saying like, well, here's some grainy ones that are real, and then here's a BS one.
I don't know what to make of that one. It's got detail on it, more detail than any of the other photos.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be good to know what type of, is this a FLIR camera? So is it infrared video? It looks like it's probably infrared. But to get that kind of detail on infrared would be hard to do.
Right.
My gut is saying that's manufactured.
Yeah.
But I don't actually know.
But who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought
if it's an infrared image, I can't see the light details in the inside would be visible. So it would probably be washed out. It would be blurry, and you'd have Neil deGrasse Tyson complaining about it.
He's anti all this, right?
Kind of. I mean, yeah.
You ever meet
mostly.
him or no?
No, I haven't met him. No.
Do you feel like? Yeah, I mean, he's an example of a very popular person who feel like doesn't believe in any of this or not open to it. Do you feel like in your career though you've been like shunned, or people are just like, what are you doing by studying this type of stuff?
I've had some of my friends and colleagues say that to me, but I've not been shunned.
Yep.
I was fortunate to come into studying this kind of later in my career after I've established myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that I think went a long way. It's a lot harder for somebody who's younger. Like Matthew Shadagas, my colleague, is 20 years younger than me, I guess, or maybe 15, I guess. And so he's not as far along in his career, and that's a tougher situation to be in. Yeah.
Just being accepted by like the scientific community and colleagues.
Yeah. So it makes a difference. I mean, my colleagues who know me and know that I'm a careful scientist, they'll listen to what I have to say. They're still skeptical, and we're all trained to be skeptical.
But shouldn't you be, right?
And we should be.
That's studying science.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how long were you at NASA for?
I was there for 4 years.
And your primary role there was?
I was at NASA Ames in the Bay Area in California.
Yep.
Right next to Google. Now it's exactly next to Google. Google bought all the land right up to NASA Ames. After I left there, but I was at NASA Ames for 4 years. I was in the Intelligent Systems Division, so my job was to develop machine learning systems to analyze data for
AI,
astrophysics.
AI
or
before it was before it was cool.
Before it was cool, or before anybody knew what we were actually up to. I mean, we weren't. They weren't the same type of AI systems. They're machine learning systems designed to analyze data from. I was working mainly with imagery from the Hubble Space Telescope.
Okay.
And so it's specifically designed AI system, so it's a very different type of thing.
Yep. Did people at NASA, did people ever talk about UFOs and UAPs and?
No, very anti-UFO, actually. Most of my NASA colleagues were, no, that's just silly and nonsense. Yeah, which I always thought was odd, but.
Why? Because you're like, I think these people know something?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I never got that impression. You know, did some of them know some things? It appears now that might be the case, but it's not clear. It's hard to say. We often say things like the government knows, or, well, the government's not a thing and NASA's not a thing. There's some people in the government know this, and some people at NASA may know about something.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I guess explain that to the best of your knowledge, because you blanketly say the government, but it's like, that doesn't probably even mean the president knows everything.
Yeah, the government is a set of multiple agencies. And the government, there's 3 branches, and then these branches depend on multiple agencies, federal agencies, to do things, and these agencies don't necessarily talk to each other. They're often competitive on top of it, which has been a problem in the past. And so some of the agencies may have worked with UAP or encountered them and had to deal with them in some way, but and may know some things about them, but they are not sharing them with other agencies.
Because they're not allowed to.
And sometimes they're not allowed to, sometimes they don't want to, and it can get quite complicated. And in fact, when Congress demanded information from all the agencies about what they knew about UFOs, I mean, the Air Force, as far as I understand, the Air Force never even replied. Right, so some of them didn't even reply. Right. So it's very messy.
And like, how can this stuff be strategically kind of hidden within government agencies so stuff doesn't get out? Like, is that a real thing?
Yes, that can happen. Things are very compartmentalized, especially when they're classified. And in fact, what appears to have happened with UAPs is that this is what I've been told, is that if there's a crash and there are parts, you can get different components sent to different companies for study.
Also,
and then those companies, it's classified, but it's not just classified, it becomes proprietary.
Explain.
Proprietary property for the company.
For a private company.
For a private company. And so the federal government can't disclose it, and nobody can disclose it. The company would have to decide to disclose it.
Right. So it's kind of held in its own little pocket of safety, even when we keep having disclosure. Like, well, this doesn't have to come out because it's proprietary to. Yeah.
And this is what the Congress was trying to get passed. Congress was trying to deal with this to create laws that they have to turn over. They have to make the information they've gained from the material we gave them public, and so Congress was trying to change some of that, and there was a big push to have that not happen. I think that's what stopped Schumer's proposal from going through, his bill from going through.
Is that they wouldn't allow that to happen? Private companies to have to disclose.
Private companies don't want that to happen.
This is like a rare bipartisan issue too. Yeah, you have people on both sides.
Yeah, it's strange that way, right?
It's like that and the Epstein files are like the two bipartisan
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
It affects everybody.
Yeah, but like, how quick must our government have to act if we have a crash retrieval program for them to come in, learn about it, get stuff? No, none of the public sees, no private citizens know, right?
Yeah, it would have to be quick, and the in fact, Matthew Shadagis had written a paper on how long before you have catastrophic disclosure.
Which would mean unplanned
Unplanned
disclosure.
disclosure. So he basically went through the history of crashes to see how many they are and their distributions on the planet that are known, and then looked at the statistics on how long will it be until you get a crash in a populated area that you can't cover up. And so he found that, if I'm remembering it right, he found that it's about 40 years. So in the next 40 years, there could be a crash in a populated area that they can't cover up.
And you have to say, too, that probably got accelerated because everybody has a camera in their pocket now.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that may have happened to some degree already. You've got that they crash in Brazil.
That is the one that James Fox talked about,
James
right?
Fox talked about that, and then the kids saw the alien creature and all of this. Yeah,
Those get crazy to me because it's like, the Varginha, right? Varginha, I think that's what that is in Brazil. And then you had, wasn't there one in the U.S.? Is it? It's not Holloman. What's the Air Force base where people say a craft landed and there were like little aliens that got out?
There was one at Holloman.
Holloman,
yeah. I don't know if they were little aliens, but there was a planned meeting. Apparently, these are the rumors, right? That there was actually a planned meeting at Holloman Air Force Base.
What's the strongest evidence for you that we have? Do you feel like we have biologics, non-human biologics?
If these crashes are happening, if some of these crashes actually happened, we probably do.
Because didn't Grush testify that we do?
Grush testified that we do, yeah. And I've heard from others that we do.
Other people other than Grush.
Yeah.
And I guess that's like, what's in it to them to lie then?
Yeah, no, I mean, some of these people aren't going public and don't want to go public, so.
Yeah, that's wild. It's wild because that's another layer, right? It's like, okay, you just have this craft and non-human intelligence, but now you're like, you have biologics.
There are non-Homo sapiens occupants, right?
Right. I mean,
what?
that, yeah.
Yeah, what do you do with that? Right.
Yeah, because the Varginha one, the Brazil, it was like these, non-human things were running around and families saw them and kids saw them, yeah?
Right, yeah.
And I feel like, kids are crazy, but,
Well, when you get multiple witnesses on something.
Yeah, when you hear the stories and that they're consistent over time from multiple people who'd seen it at the same time, it gets to be a little more compelling.
And it's also like kids tend to want to tell the truth more, I feel like, whereas adults are like, I can lie about this. I can lie about that. I can little white fib here. Where kids are like you go ask a 4-year-old, hey, how's this look? And they go,
not good.
Doesn't look great. That's not good. They're going to tell you the brutal honesty,
Right. Yeah, kids are funny that way.
Yeah. I mean, you think people see things and then they're discouraged from saying things?
How do you mean discouraged?
Like people in the need to know find out and are like, hey, you're not going to say anything.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, there's the whole Men in Black phenomenon, which happens apparently at times. That's a strange one where people have a UFO sighting.
Don't they talk about the black helicopters? Is that a thing? Or that's me being
apparently
wacky?
This is what people report. Yeah. But you would have somebody who would see a UFO, not say anything, and then like the next day 3 men in black show up and tell them not to talk about the UFO they saw. And that seems that to me is one of the strangest aspects of this phenomenon, because those stories are really bizarre. The men in black who show up are really, the stories associated with them are almost stranger than the UFO stories.
Yeah, it's like my head just goes to like not real information and it sounds kooky, or like just how far of a length people will go to make sure that this doesn't get to the public.
And then who are these people and how did they know they saw a UFO? And
when did these Men in Black stories start?
That's a good question, and I don't have a good answer to that. They go back into the 40s for sure.
So then,
but they actually they're actually older, and they're related to paranormal sightings.
Okay.
So there had been cases earlier that I've heard about, and I haven't gotten I've been trying to get notes on these, but I don't have a good collection. But somebody would have a ghost sighting and not tell anybody, and then Men in Black would show up and tell them not to talk about it. So it's like, well, wait a minute. Now so if you hear something like this from like the 1700s,
Right.
Oh, you're saying we're dating back
like
hundreds
way back,
of years ago.
these things. So the Men in Black stories can go way back. I would love somebody to study that, the whole Men in Black thing. I think that's a fascinating aspect that nobody's made sense of. It would be interesting.
Yeah. But I mean, if you really go back into ancient history, I mean, you can see evidence of people talking about things that could be UFOs, correct?
Yeah, the oldest sightings go back to, go back to Roman times. There's some Roman historians. There was a battle in a valley. Is it Tartantum, maybe? So this is about 2,000 years ago. And this battle's going on, and 3 flying shields came flying down and swept, over the battlefield and then took off and scared the crap out of everybody. It ended the battle. The battle ended. Everybody just ran. And but that's part of Roman history, right? So
Yeah.
now what do you do with that?
Yeah, man. It is wild. It is wild if true. It's what's the program where they say the government hides a lot? The legacy program?
Mm-hmm.
Is where it's supposed to have a lot of this information kind of built in. And that's a program that's just protected, like we talked about, in different agencies. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when it comes to disclosure, I don't know it's interesting because we in this community who've been studying these things, we don't know what's known by the government or what various agencies know, and we don't know what they're going to disclose either.
Right.
So we're not really sure where disclosure is going to go and how that's going,
Or how long.
it's going to last, and what we're going to learn about.
Yeah, or if ever we get to you, the final step would be saying there's non-human intelligent life.
Yeah.
And it's here.
Kind of, except that there are phenomena related to them that we don't understand either. There's the whole abduction phenomenon. Is that real? And now if that real, now you've got a whole other set of problems to deal with, right?
Yeah.
And if we've been recovering crashed craft and alien bodies, did we ever recover any live ones? What happened to them?
Right.
That's a whole other set of problems where laws could have been broken and horrible atrocities committed. Who knows?
Right.
The whole thing gets very messy very quickly, and I think that's probably part of why it's been secret.
Right. From your research and what you've seen and studied, what are definitive things that you can say that there are crafts in the sky moving in ways that we can't do?
Yeah, the things, as I'm a physicist, so I'll look at the physics first. The speeds and accelerations are, phenomenal. They're at a 1,000 G acceleration, which is 1/5 of what we saw the Tic Tacs doing. You can get to, if you can sustain that in space, you can get to 90% the speed of light in 17 hours at a 1,000 G acceleration. So if you can get to 90% the speed of light, you can cruise across the galaxy in, so if you accelerated halfway, you could actually make it across the galaxy in about 3 months. That's 3 months ship time, because now we have time dilation, relativity going on is in play. So the time is going slower on the ship. So it'll take 3 months for the people on the spaceship. It'll take about 80,000 years for the rest of us, right?
Wow.
So, and I think a lot of people don't quite get their heads around that, especially even scientists, because they'll say, well, even if you can go really fast, it'll still take 80,000 years to get across the galaxy. Well, that's for you, but not for the traveler. The traveler can do it. Now, the problem is they can't go back home. So if I left here and traveled across the galaxy and then came back, that's 80,000 years plus another 80,000 years. That'd be 160,000 years in the future.
Yeah, what are you coming into?
So that's a 6-month trip for me, but for everybody on Earth, it's 160,000 years, so I can't come home, right?
Right.
And then the argument that physicists have had was that, well, who would do that? Nobody would do that. Well, not. You don't say nobody would do that. Humans are crazy. We will do all sorts of crazy ass things. So I could see somebody trying that. But who would do it would be a nomadic culture. So we don't have many nomadic cultures left on Earth anymore, but there used to be many more nomadic cultures, and there still are some. And a nomadic culture would work like this. So I'm going to go off and investigate one star system over here 100 light years away. You go off and you investigate a star system over here 100 light years away, and we'll meet back here in 3 weeks, and we can compare notes. And that'll work just fine, except it won't be 3 weeks on Earth or there. It'll be 200 years in the future. But I don't care if it's 200 years in the future if I don't live on the planet. So
Right. Yeah, interesting way to look
so
at
you
it.
could have a whole different type of civilization out there. And
People have to be open to that.
yeah, we don't know what we're dealing with, and we don't know what the possibilities are. There's many different possibilities.
Yeah.
That's insane.
80,000
years.
You think there could... All right, a lot of these crafts are transmedium, though. They can go into the water.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You see that, right?
Yeah.
You see them...
And I've heard
this is-
from other people that can go space, air, water, no problem.
So I think there's aliens in the water.
Do you think so, Kevin?
What?
They're underwater?
Yeah,
You think so?
perfect place to hide.
It-
Perfect place to live. I mean, it's a great place to live. Well, first, especially if you're aquatic to start with, then water on Earth is not any different than water anywhere else. And the nice thing about water is that liquid water is always within a small temperature range.
And most of Earth is water.
It's a water planet. It's the most poorly named planet in our solar system next to Uranus.
But-
Yeah.
You just want to call it water?
It should be water, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we have this idea that Earth looks like what you see outside when you walk out the door. That's not what most of Earth looks like at all. Yeah.
So great. You
Should just be called ocean.
It should be called ocean.
Yeah. You're saying that because they're gonna know that environment. It's water.
Yeah, they would know. So it would be easy to go, and water planets are relatively common. So if you were going to be an interstellar traveler, it would be better to prepare. I would prepare for one of two things: either living in a vacuum, where you just stay in your spaceship and you live in your spaceship, or preparing to live underwater. Those were the two most common environments.
Does a craft being able to have this space-time bubble then make sense for you too, to be able to go into all these different environments? And
that's interesting because I don't think anyone has really worked out the mathematics of general relativity and warp bubbles in medium.
right.
So what happens to a warp bubble when it goes through the air or water or land? I don't think anyone knows.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's done those calculations. That's not an easy thing to do.
But being in the water, you're down for that. You say I can
Being in the
see.
water is great. I mean, well, look at atmospheres. So we live on a surface, and it's at 50 degrees Fahrenheit today, right? So, but the temperature ranges on Earth go from 110 degrees down to minus 30, minus 40, something like that, right? So you've got a 150 degree range, right, Fahrenheit. Now you go to Venus, and the atmosphere is 100 times more dense. So you've got 100 times the air pressure, and the temperature is about 800 degrees. And then now you go to Mars, and it's 1/100th the density, the atmospheric air pressure of Earth. So that's a factor of 10,000 in air pressure going from Venus to Mars, and the temperature is about 100 degrees below zero. So you've got about almost 1,000 degrees temperature difference in Fahrenheit between the two planets. So atmospheres can vary dramatically. But if you're in liquid water is only liquid between 32 degrees Fahrenheit and 212 Fahrenheit.
Much more controlled.
It's much more controlled. You know what the temperature is going to be before you even get there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and to deal with water pressure, that's going to vary by gravity of the planet, but it also varies by depth. So you can just go down to the depth that you're comfortable at.
Right. And then I guess you're saying if these crafts are just living there, then it's Yeah, you don't have to travel. You're just here. You pop
You're
up,
just here,
you
yeah.
back down.
Which is why I do think they live here, and that's why others have thought the same, is that their reaction times are short.
Explain.
So they show up during certain natural disasters, like when, especially involving pollution or nuclear problems. So
this is all documented.
Fukushima, when the nuclear power plant in Japan went, there were UFOs there the next day. So they'll show up where there's been nuclear spills, where there's a lot of pollution. You'll get UFOs showing up. And the same thing happened in Chernobyl as well. So if you get, so to be able to show up 24 hours later means that they have to be within a half light day of Earth, because it would take a half a day for the light information to travel out to where they are, and then they would have to come to Earth to investigate. So to be a day away, they have to be living within a half light day away. That puts them in the solar system. So they certainly live in the solar system and probably live on Earth. Earth would be the best place to be.
Yeah.
Makes the most sense.
This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Bombas. Bombas makes my favorite pair of socks, hands down, alongside the most comfortable and durable underwear, t-shirts, and other everyday clothing staples. Their wide variety of sock lengths, colors, and patterns have you covered, whether you're working out, going out, or lounging at home. I love the Merino Wool Blend Athletic Ankle Sock for long days of coaching at CDSF and getting in workouts myself. And if I'm at home doing work around the house, you better believe I'm wearing my Bombas Sunday slippers with their comfy memory foam midsole. And when you buy from Bombas, you're also buying for those in need. For every item you purchase, Bombas donates one item to people in overnight shelters, transitional living facilities, rehab centers, Title I schools, and medical service professionals. Take my word, if you want to upgrade your sock game to one that's more comfortable, durable, fashionable, and charitable, head over to the Bombas link in this episode's description to browse their full collection of everyday wear, and don't forget to use code CDSF20 for 20% off your first order. This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Anchor and the all-new Anchor Pro, crafted to endure the most high-performance workouts without the high cost and space requirements of a standard cable machine. Named the best portable cable machine by Men's Health Home Gym Awards, Anchor provides the full functionality of a cable machine in one small space-saving unit. Designed with user-friendliness in mind, Anchor can simply be attached to any squat rack or placed on any wall in your home gym using its intuitive sliding track mount. With up to 65 pounds of resistance, Anchor is built for high speed and controlled exercises alike, from cable presses and rows to chops and lifts. The Anchor has been a game changer for us here at CDSF, and now you can enjoy the same professional quality cable machine in your own home gym by heading over to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Get all the benefits of a cable machine without the high cost and installation fees. Enjoy the portable luxury and space-saving performance of Anchor today by going to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 at checkout. That's anchortraining.com, promo code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. What? And then in terms of what would be your best educated guess, if there is non-human intelligence, as to what they are? Is it either, a species from a different solar system, galaxy? Is it us from the future coming back? Is it a species that lives here under the water? Like, what?
I have no idea, and that's what's
they're
so
fun
exciting.
To think about. Yeah,
there's several possibilities, and they're all interesting, right? So it could be a species that evolved here and has lived with us throughout our history. We just didn't know about it. They live in the water. You could have, you mentioned time traveling people from the future. Yeah, so Michael Masters has talked about that.
Is that who talks about? Yeah, like if we just kept evolving, like our head would get bigger, our body we'd have less muscle mass.
Looked into see what we'd look like if we kept evolving along the same trends. Yeah, and so they could be time travelers from the future. Now you've got to throw time travel into the mix, which I find makes it more complicated. So that's not one of my favorite hypotheses, but we can't rule it out. Heck, they could be humans from the past. Let me throw this one out there. This is a crazy one. It could be that humans had earlier civilizations that we didn't know about. It only takes, how long does it take to get from Roman times to now to make spaceships? That's only 2,000 years. So there could be a time 100,000 years ago where humans actually developed to the point where they could space travel. They left and then came back and then are now coming back. You could have that happening. They could have left at relativistic speeds, went across the galaxy, and then are coming back now. That could be happening too. So you could have time-traveling humans from the future or the past, which...
This stuff's fun, Jay, right? To talk about?
It's a little crazy all the possibilities. It's like, could be a species that evolved here. It could be aliens from another planet, from our solar system, or from another solar system. Yeah, we really don't know what we're dealing with at all, which I think is fascinating.
It's so fascinating.
Can I ask a question, Mikey?
Oh, Jay, I want you to. Yeah, be curious, please.
So the fact that they seem to surface around natural disasters, from that, do you infer that they have some sort of stake in the well-being of the planet?
That appears to be the case. Yeah. So I think one of the hypotheses I've had is, so I wanted to get an idea of how easy it was to perform space travel and colonization. So, because this always is the biggest argument against it, that this is too hard to fly between stars and couldn't be done. And I know already from the accelerations that we've seen UFOs perform that would be possible for these craft. These craft wouldn't just be able to do it; they'd be good at it, right?
But don't. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
But then don't, if they're moving at these speeds and that amount of G's that you talked about, if there are a entity in there, a person in there, don't they have to be able to withstand those G's and not melt like us?
That's why you have to go to something like dealing with. They have to be manipulating inertia somehow. With maybe a warp bubble is one way to do it. Right. There may be other ways to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, something like that has to be happening at those accelerations.
Yep.
Because the craft wouldn't even be able to withstand it.
Yeah.
So what I did is I simulated galactic colonization. So what I did is I just randomly chose some parameters to describe a civilization that had some ability for space travel. They could travel this fast with this acceleration. They could last this long in their spacecraft, and then see if they can actually colonize other star systems and how far they could go and how long they would go until... So their civilization would also be given a lifetime, and so how far could they get in that lifetime? And so I did several million simulations like this in the galaxy, and I kept track of the ones that found Earth. And once I did that, I was able to look at the statistics of what it took what those civilizations had in common, the ones that found Earth. Of course, most of them were nearby, so that's an obvious one. I also found you don't have to go close to the speed of light. You can pull it off at 30% the speed of light. You can still pull it off to some degree, which I thought was interesting. So, which is something we could probably be capable of if we tried. And so then I looked to see what their civilizations were like, and it turned out that most of them had expanded so much that Earth was well inside of their domain. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So they're not just barely hitting us. Most of these guys are actually well around us. So now if you think about it from a colonization mindset, they could very well have, and I also looked to see how long ago they would have found Earth. So on average, it turned out that they would have found Earth about 1.2 million years ago.
Whoa.
So they've been here the whole time, right? They've known about Earth the whole time. Whether they've been here or not, who knows? But they could have easily set up a research station here or bases or something. And so you could have a situation like this where they found Earth a long time ago. In their mindset, Earth belongs to them. It's their planet.
Well, you think about from a disclosure standpoint, that's terrifying for people, probably.
Yeah, and so this is why. So people often will say, "Well, if they wanted to attack us and conquer Earth, they would have done it already." Well, that's not necessarily the case. So let's look at this scenario. So they could have found Earth a long time ago. They could have set up research stations here. They could care about the planet. And then in 1945, we dropped 2 nuclear bombs in Japan, and we demonstrate that we have the capability of destroying the whole planet.
That we're crazy.
We can ruin the place. And then now they've decided, wait a minute, these humans are a problem. We have to do something. We have to figure out how much of a problem they are, and then figure out what we're going to do about it, right? And so that could be why you've had this interest in our military bases, our interest in our nuclear weapon sites, all of this. And so that's a very different situation. And they're interested in pollution. They're interested in all of that. So yeah, they could have conquered Earth a long time ago, but my take is they probably already did. There was nothing to conquer. They just came here. And we developed while they were here. And so, but now we've got a problem in that we are running into a potential conflict at some point. So what is that going to look like?
Yeah.
Now, they're not hostile. They have been we've shot at them. We've tried to shoot them down. We have, the Chinese have, the Russians have.
That's true. Our Air Force, our military has tried.
And so we are aggressive. We've always been aggressive to them, and they really have not shown much aggression at all. So far so good. But how far can you push until somebody pushes back? You don't know.
Yeah. In that scenario, obviously it's a guess, but like, would they be extracting something? Like, what would their purpose be for
staying
even
here,
colonizing this planet?
There's a lot of reasons, and actually, there's a paper I'd started writing to try to make some of these bridges, conceptual bridges, to what questions other scientists have. So a lot of people, when they're being skeptical about this, they say, "Why would you bother visiting Earth?" Right? This is, I hear this question all the time. My response usually is, "Why wouldn't you?" We would be all over this planet if we found it in Alpha Centauri or something.
Yeah.
We're all over Mars, and there's not much there. So there's a lot of reasons to come for Earth. One of the amazing reason is the biodiversity, just the biology itself. And if you think about it this way, if you're interested in manipulating matter at a molecular scale, that's what biology does naturally. So biology has mechanisms that have evolved, unique mechanisms that have evolved to allow you to manipulate matter at a molecular scale. So there's a lot of discovery to be made about chemistry. I mean, this is why we study chemistry of plants and things. And so there's a lot of things to discover. And we rely on a lot of biological materials for our technology. Rubber. We would not have cars without rubber trees. We need rubber trees. I mean, that's a crazy way to think about it, but you could not have a car without rubber trees. You would go back to wooden wheels with horses and carriages really quickly. So rubber is a major thing, but that's a biological material. We can't make artificial rubber like trees can. So there's a lot of benefits to coming to a planet with life.
What's their incentive them not be seen, not want to be seen, that we want to just go to war?
Of course, there's a lot of, the first thing I think of being a science fiction fan is the prime directive from Star Trek, right? Oh, you don't want to affect the planet. So, and we behave that way when we're filming nature documentaries. It kind of drives me nuts a little bit when, we have to save the sea turtles, but look, here are the sea turtles, they've just hatched and they're trying to make it to the ocean. Oh, they're being picked off by the gulls, and they're filming this happening. Chase the gulls away. What is wrong with you people? You're going to put all this money into rescuing sea turtles who got straws shoved up their noses, but you're not going to rescue the sea turtles you can't interfere, right? Well, yeah, I beg to differ. You can interfere. You're part of this planet too. You are as much of this planet as the seagull is, and if the seagull has the right to take the sea turtle, you have the right to chase the seagull away.
I want to see that Kevin documentary, just sniping off seagulls.
Crazy. For me, the whole thing is crazy. But yeah, so they could have this mindset where they don't want to interfere or want to minimize their interference. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to speculate about what an alien intelligence would want or like or prefer to do, what their behavior would be like. I think it really is just speculation.
Yeah.
And you can't help it from being anthropomorphized. It's tough.
Is Shadaga studying crash material? Did I read that or am I wrong?
He is studying crash material.
And I guess explain, so the biggest thing you're looking for in that is like, is there something in here that does not exist on Earth?
Yeah, that's basically it. He's looking the first things you do are I can talk about some of what he does. And the first thing you do is you look to see what its what's it made of? So what are the elements that are present? So usually you use something like X-ray fluorescence to do this, and you shine X-rays at it and look at the X-rays that come off of it, and that tells you what the nuclei of those elements are. And the X-rays affect the electron shells, the inner electron shells, so you can get an idea of what the elements are. He also has developed a technique called neutron activation, where he basically hits it with a beam of neutrons that then are absorbed by the nuclei of the atoms and actually turn them into isotopes that are radioactive. So you actually make some of the atoms radioactive. They then decay, and you watch how they decay because they emit gamma rays and alpha particles and beta particles. So you watch how they decay, and from how they decay, you can figure out what they were when they decayed, what isotopes they were, and because you knew it absorbed a neutron, you can figure out what isotope it was before you radiated it.
Whoa.
So he has this, it's a very cool idea, and it works. And he's been using that to figure out isotope compositions.
Has he found anything? Where's it from? Can you say or no?
He has material from all over the place at this point. He jokes that he has studied more Earth rock than he ever expected.
People will give stuff to him and say this is from a
crash or something.
And most of the time it's just
dirt.
Just dirt.
Yeah. So
has he come across anything that's more than
business.
That's more than just dirt?
Yeah, he has looked at he's looked at some pieces that have come from New Mexico. I think maybe Roswell. I'm not totally sure.
Yep.
But he's looked at some of those pieces, the magnesium pieces, and he's still studying them. So I don't think he's had anything conclusive right now.
Yet. Yeah, man, that's crazy. Back to disclosure. You've met Hal Puthoff before?
Yeah, I've met Hal.
Yeah, I've just watched some of his interviews and stuff.
He's a cool guy.
Cool dude. I mean, I forget where he worked, but he was within a government agency, right? At some point.
I don't know. He's worked in a few places.
Yeah.
He was at SRI early on when he was doing the remote viewing work.
That's what I wanted to talk about. The remote viewing is wild. We had programs that worked on remote viewing.
And
Have you heard of that, Jay?
On those. Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Explain to Jay what remote viewing is.
Oh, well, yeah. So they worked on studying remote viewing where people are prompted with some type of target to remote view, and they, I don't know what word to use, meditate on it, and then they disclose their impressions, which are usually drawings or descriptions. And so you can view places far distant or remote view people and see what they're doing and things like this. This is apparently, I don't exactly know what the limits are or what, the constraints are on how it works, but that's the basic idea.
Huh.
Yeah, wild. Just that some people have this ability.
I think most people have the ability, it turns out. Some people are just better than others.
Do you think it's something we could do way back when, and evolutionarily we've lost it?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a wild one. Yeah, what else? Because too, I read that he said he was part of a group, I think during George W. Bush. Have you seen this about disclosure? Where he had said they got a group of people together, the Bush administration.
Was this the first Bush administration, I think?
I think the second. I think W, right?
Second.
That's
okay.
the second. I think it was 2003, where they basically were tasked to come up with the effects if we were to disclose non-human intelligence. What are the effects on society, economics, religion? And then to say whether it's worth it or not. And I think they all were just like, no,
It's not worth it.
Not worth doing.
It's going to be a hot mess. Really, it would be a hot mess. I think that's Chris Mellon, who was a former Assistant Secretary of Defense, he was speaking about disclosure at one of the Seoul meetings, I think 2003, and he likened it to COVID. He said basically what you should expect is going to happen is it's going to affect many different aspects of our society in rather unpredictable ways. So it'll affect the stock market. It'll affect, people's mental health. It's going to affect, religion. It's going to affect all sorts of things. And each one of them has its own bit of an unpredictability. And so he said it's all just going to, and that's kind of how COVID hit us as well. And so he goes, so the effect should really be it'll be very similar to COVID, where everything just kind of breaks.
Yeah.
In weird places, right? There's a toilet paper shortage. That one still amazes me. I still don't understand exactly why and how that all happened. But that's exactly the unpredictable breaking, right?
Right.
And so, disclosure will happen and there's be a toilet paper shortage again for some reason. And, and I think that's one of the problems is nobody knows exactly how it's going to break.
Right.
And the interesting thing he said in the meeting was, and it really put a hush over the room. He said,
with who else are you talking about?
With
Mellon?
Christopher Mellon.
Okay.
Yeah, he said the real problem is that when we disclose, we don't know what the non-humans are going to do. And I remember when he said that, I was just like, oh, crap. I never even thought about them as being players in the game, right? They have their own intentions, their own plans, and we'd have no idea what any of that is. And they clearly have their own intentions and their own plans. But when we have disclosure, that clearly changes the dynamic. And so how does this affect their plans? And because we don't have any idea of what their plans are, we can't even guess as to how it's going to affect their plans. And so how's it going to affect what they do? We don't know. So they're the big unknown. It's
yeah,
who knows? It is concerning. I want to use the word worrisome, but I try not to worry. I think it's important. Don't worry, be concerned. I think that's a better way to think about it.
But probably doesn't, or if it does, disclosure happen, probably does or doesn't happen in our lifetime.
Oh, it could happen this summer. I think it's close. I think it's very close to coming apart.
Because of pressure from Congress and whistleblowers, plus them starting to disclose?
You've got whistleblowers still coming out. I think I've heard that there's a new person who's going to come out next week or so.
A whistleblower?
Another whistleblower, yeah. And I know that there have maybe 40 people or so lined up who are ready to come out and but they're trying to figure out how to bring evidence with them.
In terms of what's legal to bring?
What's legal to bring, and so, yeah.
Is this the most you've ever felt coming to this point in all your years of studying this?
Oh, I never imagined we'd get this far. I mean, we're further than I thought we'd get.
We'd ever get.
Yeah. And disclosure is going to be interesting because we don't know what the government knows, how much they know. We know they don't know. In some ways, they don't seem to know a lot. And so.
But some people do.
But some people know. We know bits and pieces, a lot about some bits and pieces. But I don't think anybody has the big picture. And so, it's not clear what this is going to all look like. Yeah.
Kind of terrifying when you think about it like that. What about? I mean, you've never been pressured or threatened because of your work, or do you know people that have been?
Yeah. Well, when I started studying UAPs, was that summer I went to a MUFON conference in New Jersey, and my brakes were tampered with. So I have had problems like that.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
other times as well, or that's the?
That's the only problem I've had. Yeah. But,
Do you know?
but I know other people have had other problems. Yeah, been followed by cars or helicopters and things like that.
Because you see the stuff in the news that's been prominent lately. There's like over the course of years, like 11 scientists who are involved in these fields.
That's a whole new
Does that scare?
problem.
Does that scare you?
It concerns me. Yeah, certainly. I'm much more careful than I had been before, and I had already been careful. So
Just about your life.
yeah.
So you feel like these are all connected in ways?
They're possibly connected.
Because when you-
some of them are clearly connected, but not all of them. And so it's hard to know how an exoplanet expert who discovered water on another planet is related to a person who studies meteorites, is related to somebody who studied metals used for rocket engines, right? But these are the ranges of people we're talking about. They are sort of related, but they're not obviously closely related. But some of them are. What was her name? The woman, she's NASA, went missing hiking.
Yeah, I don't know the name.
It just escaped me. I had it before, but she actually developed some of the metals alloys that are used in rocket engines, and she worked on a program underneath the general that went missing. So those two are closely related.
Connected. Too much to be coincidental.
Too much to be coincidental, and they both went missing.
Which
right? So now what? And she was only 30 feet away from her hiking buddies.
The story is, her buddy turned around and she wasn't there.
She was gone. Yeah.
I mean, that's fucking terrifying, if true, because that means people are really trying to hide things, not let things come to light.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
I'm sometimes glad I don't know a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much for show. Like, I watched the Sleeping Dog, the Corbell documentary, and he's just a journalist. But the whole tone of it was just like, he's throwing back Miller Lights maybe like nobody I've seen before during the whole thing. But beside the fact, the whole tone of it
I
is
haven't
just,
seen it. Now I want to watch it.
Oh, count the number of beers. It's a lot.
Okay.
But the tone is just like, he's scared. He's scared because he knows what he knows, is the whole tone of that documentary. It's almost just like, not to put words in anybody's mouth to say this is true, it's almost just like, if something happens to me, look, here's this.
Yeah. Here. Like, here's
Well,
the
I think a lot of people who work on this have plans for if anything happens to them, all of this information gets released, and there's a lot of things like that.
This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Drink Alchemy. Fatigue and brain fog affect us all, destroying everything we pursue. Whether as an athlete, artist, creator, or entrepreneur, our mind holds the key to performing optimally. By combining the most potent organic nootropics found in nature, Drink Alchemy delivers sustainable boost to creativity, memory, energy, and focus in one epic beverage. Stop pumping your body full of excessive amounts of caffeine and unknown proprietary blends from other energy drinks, and get clean energy from Drink Alchemy's natural nootropics like lion's mane, L-theanine, and caffeine from green tea. Used by Olympians, D1 athletes, MMA fighters, and entrepreneurs, Drink Alchemy has become a huge part of my daily routine, making sure I'm functioning optimally during long days of coaching athletes, running CDSF, and getting in quality workouts myself. So do yourself a favor and ditch the energy drinks loaded with caffeine, other stimulants, and who knows what else, and head over to drinkalchemy.com today. Live with your mind unbound and save 10% off your order by using code CDSF at checkout. That's drinkalchemy.com, promo code CDSF for 10% off your order today. And could that be why countries have to work together to keep this quiet? It's not just happening here.
No, they are working together. This is, again, not just bipartisan efforts. There's a multinational effort to keep this quiet, all right? There's a bipartisan effort for disclosure, but there's been a multinational effort to keep it quiet.
Yeah.
It's just strange.
Okay.
I mean, France has a lot of information. They've studied this a lot, and I've wondered why don't they take the lead and disclose? Why hasn't that happened? But no, they always look to America and wait. Yeah.
Even scarier. Even crazier. It's just wild, yeah. I mean, your brakes thing, dude, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't even know. I'm just like, let's go back to talking about the dog that died.
Oh, no.
Well, we don't know if the dog died.
I don't know if it died. Yeah, I don't remember if it died or just got hurt.
But that dropped molten. You've talked about an angel hair thing before. That was in France or that was in Europe?
Oh, yeah.
Italy?
I wrote about that in my paper.
Which was what? A biological substance that got dropped from
Yeah, that turns so that there have been multiple angel hair cases where they've actually collected materials. So this is angel hair is a white fibrous substance, kind of sticky, that is sometimes has been observed to be emitted from UFOs. The one in Florence, Italy, during a soccer match was probably the biggest case. So what was that, 1954 or something like that? But there were 10,000 people in the stadium, and discs flew over and hovered over the field, right? And was emitting angel hair. So there was this white fibrous substance coming off of the UFO. The game stopped. The soccer game stopped. The players were watching the UFO. I mean, this is one of these well-documented sightings from the 50s where it's like 10,000 people saw this, and you're really going to still think that this stuff is nonsense?
This was later, but like the Phoenix Lights, that was
another one where people saw all over. Yeah, those were just A-10s dropping flares. No, they weren't. That's ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah.
Was the angel hair substance tested to see what it was made of?
It was tested, and it was the equipment. So that's a little complicated. It was tested by chemists in Italy, and the equipment they had to test it was only sensitive within a certain elements, and so they decided that it was boroscate silica. So it was basically silicon.
Okay.
Like sand. But later, Phyllis Budinger, who's a chemist, had analyzed multiple angel hair samples from the U.S., and she found them to be related, their biological material related to caterpillar silk.
Interesting.
And her hypothesis is the reason the Florence, Italy was boroscate silica was because they were picking up the sand that had got stuck on the fibers after they fell on the soccer field. So, and their equipment wouldn't have been able to detect carbon-based molecules, so it wouldn't have detected that it was caterpillar silk.
Right. So can't prove that was something not from Earth. Yeah. Yeah, man.
But that's a strange one, and you know, my brother Joshua actually had an interesting hypothesis that, you know, we do know that these UFOs sometimes have large electric fields, and so he said, you know, if you're whipping through the air with a large electric field, you could be picking up a lot of spider silk and caterpillar silk in the air. and then when you stop and if you change your electric field, that's going to fall off the ship, and that could. I thought that was an interesting explanation. Yeah, that we don't know that that's not what's happening.
Yeah, that's true. So UAPX is now fully at U Albany. Is that true?
Fully at U Albany. Yes.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So how did that? Because when I talked to even Shadagas last year, I think it wasn't fully at U Albany yet.
No, it wasn't. We got a generous donation from Tony Gorman, a local businessman, and who basically funded us starting the effort at U Albany. So we've moved UAPX entirely to U Albany, and it is mainly me, Professor Matthew Shadagas, Professor Cecilia Levy. We even have Professor Eric Davis, who you've heard of. Mm-hmm. He's now an adjunct professor at U Albany.
Oh, cool.
He's not physically here, but he's actually as a graduate student working on warp drive in our department. And so there's 4 of us working together on UAP. And then we have 2 more professors who are helping us out with different aspects. One of our professors in optics and another computer scientist working with us. And I have a meeting next week with somebody from the electrical engineering department who's going to help us develop some equipment.
That's awesome.
So if you think about it, we've gone from 3 or 4 people. We're like branched out to maybe seven PhDs at the university actually helping us. So we're quite well accepted at U Albany, which I really appreciate.
That's really great.
That's awesome.
What are your biggest goals with it at U Albany as it hopefully continues to grow when you're doing more work?
Yeah, we have 2 major goals. One is to collect our own data on UAPs. So we have some monitoring stations set up in several locations. And
Around here or over the?
so they're all relatively local. The most distant one is maybe New Jersey,
Okay.
and but close to where all the drone activity was last year. And so we have camera systems, visible camera systems, and then we additionally have infrared cameras and things like this that we can take out to these sites as well. And so that's one of our major goals. The other one is the materials analysis that Matthew Shadagas is doing.
That's awesome, man. Are you going to do another expedition like you did previously, or no?
We don't have an expedition of that magnitude planned, a distant one planned.
Yep.
The local ones are still kind of like expeditions. We last May went out to a site in Connecticut and spent a week out there observing. I was only able to go out for 2 days, but Matthew Shadagas had spent the whole week out there and actually saw. That was a place where people had seen what they call orbs, and he actually witnessed several cases of orbs, which he looked at one through a telescope and it said, "Yes, it's a big ball of plasma," which was great. So we have observed some things already as well, which is good.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I appreciate you doing this, Kevin.
Yeah, this has been great fun. Thank you.
Yeah, it's just so cool locally at Albany that
Right.
you guys are doing all this. Albany Drake song, Paul, did you see that?
Yeah, I didn't. I tried to click the link and it
I think
was
it was on
gone
YouTube
by the time
anymore.
I clicked on it.
Yeah.
I got one more.
Go, please. Yeah,
Cap,
you give him.
What is the best or your favorite depiction of aliens in sci-fi?
Good.
Ooh.
Good.
I'll throw mine out. Mine is Arrival, if you've seen that film.
I love Arrival. That's a great movie. Yes. Yeah, well, you can take that question a few different ways. You know, the most interesting or inspiring depiction, I think, would probably be Arrival.
Paul, pull it up. Let me
The
see,
most accurate with what I know about the phenomenon is maybe Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
please. Pull that up too, Paul. What do you mean from what you know, from what people have said?
What people report. Steven Spielberg did an excellent job.
Arrival's got Jeremy Renner in it.
Oh, I've seen this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amy Adams?
Yes.
What
was the other one?
Close Encounters of the Third
Kind.
But yeah, just from reports and what people
Just from
you've
what
talked
people
to.
report, and their descriptions. And in fact, the one that I found interesting was, I remember, so that came out in, December of 1977.
Yep.
So
Steven
Star Wars
Spielberg.
was May 26, 1977. It was when Star Wars came out in May 77.
May 26th.
I think it was May, I think that was May 26th. It was. These are big deals. This is a big deal to some people, some weird nerds. So yes, I'm a big sci-fi nerd, and I was 12 that year, so it had a huge impression on me. And then so Star Wars came out in May. That was the summer movie, and then whatever the other production company came out with Close Encounters in December. Their response, right? And then of course Star Trek had to have a response, which came another year or two later. So I remember seeing Close Encounters in the theater, and I did not like it so much because, well, there's no lasers, there's no starships fighting each other. I mean, it's not Star Wars, right? So as a 12-year-old, it was a little disappointing. But now, as an older scientist who's studied the phenomenon, and I look at Close Encounters, I'm like, Head is dead on in a lot of ways. It was really interesting. Spielberg captured a lot of the phenomenon. One thing that I remember happening in the movie that bothered me was when Richard Dreyfuss is out investigating the electrical grid shutting down. He's in his truck and getting a map, trying to figure out where to go. And the UFO comes up behind him, and you think it's a car coming up to his truck, right? You see the rearview mirror. Then he waves it on, and it actually goes up, and then shines a light down, and that's when he gets burnt. And it gets burnt, the radio goes crazy, the electronics in the car go crazy, and the mailboxes are shaking, and the car shuts down. And then the UFO leaves, and when it left, the car started again, or the truck started again. And I thought, when it started again, I thought, that's just stupid. That can't happen. That's ridiculous. And then it was just a couple years ago, I was reading some accounts from Mark Roediger's database of cars being shut down, and found out that 10% of the cars restart after the UFO leaves.
Yeah, they may know something.
And I was like, wait a minute, how does that happen? And so I looked into it and found that I think it's William McCampbell in 1983 had noted this and had a hypothesis that what was happening was that I think it's a good hypothesis because it actually predicts the number of cars restarting, which I thought was incredible. So the idea is the UFO is a really strong electric field that's ionizing the air. So the air is now ionized and electrically conductive. So that shorts out the spark plugs in the car. So that kills the engine. And so this is why cars are shutting down when UFOs get close. And but what it also does is it is affecting the distributor cap. Now, a lot of people will jump to, but the car's a Faraday cage and it can't be. No, the engine is not inside the car. The whole top is metal. The engine is wide open on the bottom. That is not a Faraday cage. So the engine's exposed. So the distributor cap shorts out as well. And what this means is you have current flowing through the primary ignition coil. And then the UFO leaves, the distributor cap's no longer shorted out, and so that current stops. The magnetic field around the primary ignition coil collapses, which induces a current in the secondary coil, which is how a car was supposed to work. And that sends a pulse, a high voltage pulse to a spark plug, which is now working because the UFO's left. And if that piston is ready to fire, if it has gas in the piston, a gas air mixture in the piston is ready to fire, it'll get a spark and the piston will go and it'll start the car. So you can calculate how often that piston is going to be ready to fire. And it's 10% of the time.
Dude.
It's 10% of the time. And then you look at the database, it's 2,600 people had their cars shut down from UFOs, and 260 of them restart.
There she is.
And so now we've predicted something. We figured something out. And I was so excited. I was so excited to have seen that this is now, we figured something out about UFOs. And even more exciting, what that means is that all 2,600 of those people were telling the truth.
Mm. Yeah,
because the statistics wouldn't work if half of them made it up, right?
Yeah.
So how good are witnesses? Well, about some things they're actually very good.
Yeah.
You can trust them. And so I thought that was actually really significant. And then I went back and watched the movie, and I'm watching it and see Richard Dreyfuss's character is driving a Ford F-150. I'm like, that's a diesel engine that won't shut down. It turns out diesel engines are not affected by UFOs because there's no spark plugs. Mm. So I was like, and so now I'm back to my normal physicist mode where I'm finding all the inaccuracies in the sci-fi movie, Spielberg's movie. It's wrong because Richard Dreyfuss's Ford F-150 would not be shut down by a UFO. So here I get to ruin all the fun again. But I thought that's an interesting case.
Isn't Spielberg, doesn't he have a Disclosure Day movie? Isn't that coming out?
He does, and I suspect that that's going to be correlated with, if there is any announcement, they'll do it around that, yeah.
You think that is coordinated?
It's hard for me to believe it, but at the same time, if I found out that was the case, I wouldn't be so surprised.
What a guy other than Spielberg, to break the news.
I mean, I know movie people have been fed information from our government about some of these things.
June 12th, and you said next month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when's World UFO Day? That's in early June too. That might be about the same time. Because I was asked to write an article for the Conversation about UFOs. That's when I wrote my first article, but it was for
July 2nd.
That's July 2nd.
In the ballpark.
Right. Yeah, so it's all in the same time.
Because the Roswell incident was July 2nd.
That was July 2nd. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're looking at what is it, the 79th anniversary of Roswell coming up, right? So, yeah, I don't know. Well, this is going to be interesting. Let's see what happens.
I have no idea how to say the guy's name that established it, though. Hockton Ogdogan.
Gave it an effort, Paul.
It's a pretty good effort, right?
Wow, yeah. Hakan Al-Dogan. Wow.
He established it in 2001.
All right.
No, I mean, just like, I appreciate your brain coming at it from a scientific standpoint. That's why you and Chadaga, I love it, because a lot of the UFO stuff you listen to on podcasts, people talking, they're just enthusiasts, and they don't come at, which is like, I guess helps move the needle for for people to acknowledge, but like, you're just not coming at it with a scientific perspective. And
yeah, it's hard to come at it from a scientific perspective, because we ruin all the fun. So there is admittedly a lot of craziness in the UFO community. And is all that they talk about real? Probably not. And
like, who was in
we're actually finding out what some of these things, okay, that's not true, and that's not true, and that's not true.
Who was in the Corbell documentary a lot of John Lear footage. Mm-hmm. You ever hear him speak?
No, I haven't.
Oh, just out there stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. Just out there stuff where you're just like, oh, dude.
And it's tough to sort through some of this, because some of this stuff is really weird, and you can't out of hand dismiss it. You have to actually think about it and work through it, and that takes some effort and time. And I think most scientists aren't willing to do it, and that's a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that all scientists should be doing that. I certainly don't think that, but the ones who aren't doing it should let the ones who are actually do it.
Yeah.
Fair.
Well said, Kevin. Yeah, man, this was awesome. I appreciate you a lot and
awesome.
I'm happy you could make it up here, not battling the traffic like last time.
That's right.
Yeah.
The last time.
Sorry,
sorry about that.
Hey, but you made it on, so that's all that matters.
Yeah. And then we had our own UFO event last week Thursday.
This is the Troy one.
And then in Troy, New York, yeah, at the National Guard's base. They had 2 triangles hovering over the base and scanning one of the buildings with laser beams.
That was reported. It was
that was
scanning.
reported to MUFON, I guess.
Have you gotten any of the data, or no? Or is there data?
They don't have. I got a link to their report. That's all I have. Yeah. Crazy,
man.
Yeah. If you look it up, it comes right up on.
Oh, really, Paul?
Yeah.
Oh, does it?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Recent reports of May 2026 describe a UAP/UFO sightings in Troy, New York, including a silent triangular-shaped object.
There it is.
5 to 6 white light formation moving in a precise geometric pattern.
Whoa.
So
there it is.
There it is.
It is not far from here.
We wouldn't have known about it if I didn't look it up on Google.
Yeah, man.
So.
Heck yeah. All right, Kev, I appreciate you a lot. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, man, this is a great listen. I appreciate you. And we'll catch everybody next time. Thank you.
Great.